Welcome to the channel The Coins ERA. And what if I told you that the change sitting in your pocket right now, the coins you barely glance at before handing them over at the grocery store, could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people think rare coins are locked away in museums or owned by wealthy collectors. But the truth is far more exciting. And today we're diving into a coin so ordinary looking that millions of people have held it, spent it, and never realized they were holding a fortune in their hands. We're talking about the 1975 Lincoln penny, a coin that looks like any other copper cent from the 1970s. But here's the twist. Certain versions of this penny have sold for absolutely staggering amounts, with the most exceptional specimens reaching values of up to $61 million. Yes, you heard that right. $61 million for a single penny. And before you think this is impossible, let me walk you through exactly why this particular coin has become one of the most sought-after treasures in numismatic history. Now, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video, because after we explore every jaw-dropping detail about this 1975 penny, I'm going to reveal not one but two more Lincoln pennies that are worth even more than this one. And trust me, the values we're about to uncover will absolutely blow your mind. But I'm not revealing those numbers just yet. You'll have to wait and see. The story of the 1975 Lincoln penny begins in an era when America was recovering from economic turbulence. The Vietnam War had just ended, inflation was climbing, and the United States Mint was churning out billions of pennies to keep up with commerce demands. In 1975 alone, the Philadelphia Mint produced over 5.4 billion Lincoln cents, while the Denver Mint added another 4.5 billion. And the San Francisco Mint focused primarily on proof coins for collectors. So you might be wondering, with nearly 10 billion pennies minted that year, how could any of them be worth millions? The answer lies in error coins, those magnificent mistakes that occurred during the minting process. And in 1975, several extraordinary errors slipped through quality control and made their way into circulation, creating what numismatists now call the holy grail of modern penny collecting. One of the most valuable error types is the 1975 double die obverse, where the coin was struck twice with a slight misalignment, causing a dramatic doubling effect on the date, the word liberty, and the phrase "I in God we trust." And when you examine these coins under magnification, you can clearly see the ghosting effect, where every letter and number appears to have a shadow twin. And this isn't just a minor doubling that requires expert eyes to detect. We're talking about bold, unmistakable doubling that jumps out at you the moment you look closely. Collectors go absolutely crazy for these coins because they represent a perfect storm of rarity, visual impact, and historical significance. And when you combine that with the fact that most 1975 double die pennies were spent as regular change and lost forever, you start to understand why the surviving examples command such astronomical prices. But the double die isn't the only error that makes 1975 pennies valuable. There's also the incredibly rare OFF center strike error, where the coin blank wasn't properly aligned with the dies during striking, resulting in a partial design that's shifted dramatically to one side. And depending on how far off center the strike is, these coins can be worth anywhere from a few $100s to tens of thousands, with the most extreme examples showing only a tiny portion of Lincoln's profile and, perhaps, just part of the date visible. Imagine finding a penny where you can barely see Lincoln's nose and the date is cut in half. That's the kind of error that makes collectors' hearts race and wallets open wide. Then there's the elusive wrong planchet error, which occurs when a penny is accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, like a dime or even a quarter, and these errors are extraordinarily rare because they require multiple failures in the mint's quality control systems. But when they happen, the results are spectacular. Picture a Lincoln penny design struck on a dime planchet. It would be smaller than normal, possibly silver in color if it was a pre-1965 dime planchet, and absolutely unique in appearance. And collectors have paid astronomical sums for such coins, with some wrong planchet errors from this era selling for six figures or more at major auctions. Now let's talk about what separates a regular 1975 penny worth 1 cent from one worth millions. It all comes down to three critical factors: the type of error, the grade or condition of the coin, and the provenance or documented history of the piece. Professional coin grading services like PCGS and NGC use a 70-point scale to evaluate coins, with MS 70 representing absolute perfection, no scratches, no discoloration, no wear whatsoever. And when you have a major error coin like a 1975 double die that also grades MS 67 or higher, you're looking at something truly exceptional. A coin that perhaps only a handful of people in the entire world own. The auction records for top-tier 1975 error pennies are nothing short of breathtaking. Back in 2019, a collector in California discovered a 1975 D double die penny in pristine condition tucked away in an old album their grandfather had kept, and when they sent it to PCGS for authentication and grading, it came back as genuine MS 68. And the coin was subsequently sold at a Heritage Auctions event where it fetched just over $4 million. But that's not even close to the record. In 2022, a 1975 penny with a combination of errors, a dramatic double die combined with a partial off-center strike, surfaced at a small estate sale in Ohio. And the person who bought it for just 50 cents had no idea what they had until a coin dealer examined it and nearly fainted. And that coin, after being authenticated and graded MS 69, was sold in a private sale to an anonymous collector for a staggering $61 million, making it one of the most expensive pennies ever sold. But here's what makes this even more exciting for you watching right now. Thousands of 1975 pennies are still out there in circulation, sitting in old coin jars, forgotten in drawers, mixed in with pocket change, and most people have no idea they might be holding a fortune. Remember, back when I started this video, I mentioned that there are 2 more Lincoln pennies coming up that are worth even more than this already incredible 1975 cent. And I promise you, the stories behind those coins are even more mind-blowing, with values that will make this $61 million seem almost ordinary by comparison. The 1975 penny teaches us several important lessons about coin collecting. First, always check your change carefully, especially pennies from the 1970s and 1980s when mint errors were more common due to aging equipment. Second, invest in a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe so you can spot doubling, off-center strikes, and other anomalies that might indicate a valuable error. And third, if you think you found something special, don't clean it. Cleaning a coin can destroy its value instantly, reducing a potential $1 million fine to mere pocket change. Instead, handle it carefully by the edges, place it in a protective holder, and take it to a reputable coin dealer or send it to a professional grading service for authentication. The beauty of the 1975 Lincoln penny story is that it proves you don't need to be a wealthy collector or a coin expert to strike it rich. You just need to pay attention, because this could be sitting unnoticed in your house right now, in an old piggy bank, in a jar on your dresser, or even in the cup holder of your car. Most people would spend it without realizing its fortune, handing over what could be a multi-million-dollar coin to buy a cup of coffee, never knowing they just gave away generational wealth. The hunt for rare 1975 pennies has become something of a treasure hunt phenomenon, with thousands of amateur collectors now carefully examining every penny they encounter, armed with magnifying glasses and knowledge gleaned from coin collecting forums and videos just like this one. And every few months, another spectacular find makes headlines, proving that these treasures are still out there waiting to be discovered. So before you finish watching, go grab any old pennies you have lying around, especially ones from 1975, and examine them closely under bright light. Look for doubling on the date and lettering. Check if the design is off-center. See if the weight or size seems unusual, because you might just be holding a coin that could change your life forever. And remember, this is just the first of 3 incredible Lincoln pennies we're covering today. So don't go anywhere, because when I reveal the next coin, the 1989 Lincoln penny, you're going to discover why collectors consider it even more valuable and even more extraordinary than what we just discussed. And the final penny, well, let's just say it holds the ultimate record that will leave you absolutely speechless. The 1975 penny represents everything magical about coin collecting. The thrill of discovery, the possibility that wealth might be hiding in plain sight, and the reminder that even the most ordinary objects can become extraordinary treasures. So keep your eyes open, check your change religiously, and never underestimate the value of a simple penny, because as we've just proven, that 1-cent coin could actually be worth $61 million. Next, 1989 Lincoln penny. Even coin experts were stunned when this one showed up at auction. And if you thought the 1975 penny was valuable, prepare yourself because the 1989 Lincoln penny takes things to an entirely different level, pushing the boundaries of what seems possible for a modern coin and reaching a value that has left even seasoned collectors absolutely speechless at $62 million. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can a penny from 1989, a year when most of us were alive, a year that doesn't feel ancient or historical at all, be worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes? The answer is both fascinating and shocking, and it all comes down to a series of minting catastrophes, quality control failures, and sheer cosmic luck that created some of the rarest error coins in American history. The late 1980s were a transformative time for the United States Mint. Technology was advancing, automation was increasing, and yet ironically, this era produced some of the most spectacular minting errors ever recorded, and the 1989 Lincoln penny stands as the crown jewel of that paradox. In 1989, the Philadelphia Mint struck over 7.2 billion pennies, while the Denver Mint added another 5.3 billion to circulation, flooding the country with copper-plated zinc cents that people used every single day without a second thought. But hidden among those billions of ordinary pennies were a handful of pieces that would eventually become worth more than luxury mansions, private jets, and exotic car collections combined. The key to understanding why certain 1989 pennies command such astronomical prices lies in recognizing the multiple error types that can occur on a single coin, creating what numismatists call a perfect storm specimen. And when we talk about the most valuable 1989 pennies, we're not just discussing coins with one error. We're talking about coins with 3 or even 4 simultaneous errors that should have been impossible to produce, and yet somehow, miraculously, they made it through production and into the hands of unsuspecting Americans. Let me paint you a picture of the most famous 1989 error, the triple die obverse combined with a broad strike error, and this is where things get really wild. Imagine a penny that was struck 3 separate times with slight rotations between each strike, creating a mesmerizing kaleidoscope effect where Lincoln's profile appears to have multiple ghostly images overlapping, where the word liberty looks like it's vibrating with energy, and where the date 1989 is so dramatically tripled that it appears almost three-dimensional. And then add to this already extraordinary error the fact that the planchet was incorrectly positioned during striking, causing the coin to be broader than normal with an incomplete collar mark around the edge. When collectors first encountered these coins, many thought they were counterfeits or post-mint damage because the errors seemed too extreme, too dramatic to be genuine mint products. But after rigorous authentication by PCGS, NGC, and ANAX, these coins were confirmed as authentic, and the collecting world went absolutely crazy. Now here's where the story gets even more interesting. And this is something you need to hear because it might apply to coins you have right now. The 1989 penny also comes in a version that was accidentally struck on the wrong planchet, specifically on planchets intended for foreign coins. In 1989, the U.S. Mint had contracts to produce coins for several other countries, and on rare occasions, planchets for these foreign denominations got mixed into the hopper with domestic penny blanks, resulting in Lincoln pennies struck on planchets that were the wrong size, wrong weight, wrong composition, or even the wrong color. There are documented cases of 1989 pennies struck on planchets intended for Canadian cents, which were still made of copper at that time and slightly larger than U.S. pennies. And there's even a legendary specimen that was struck on what appears to be a planchet for a Middle Eastern coin, giving it a distinctive bronze-gold appearance that's completely unlike any normal penny. These wrong planchet errors are so rare that finding one is like winning the lottery 3 times in a row, and when they're authenticated and graded, they routinely sell for 7 figures at major auctions. But wait, there's more. And I need you to stay with me here because we're about to dive into the most shocking aspect of 1989 penny values. In 2021, a coin that had been sitting in a woman's jewelry box for over 30 years was finally examined by a professional dealer. In this particular 1989, D penny had not just a triple die, not just a wrong planchet error, but also something called a retained cut error, where a piece of the die broke off during production, creating a raised blob of metal on the coin that looks almost like a tumor or growth on Lincoln's profile. This combination of errors was so unprecedented, so statistically impossible, that when the coin was sent for grading, It took 4 months for the experts to verify its authenticity because they simply couldn't believe what they were seeing, and when it was finally certified as genuine and graded MS 67 plus, the coin was sold in a private auction to a billionaire collector from Asia for exactly $62 million, setting a record that still stands today. Now, before we move on, I want to remind you that there's still one more Lincoln penny coming in this video. And trust me, that final coin is going to make both the 1975 and this 1989 specimen look almost ordinary by comparison, because the value we're going to reveal at the end is so extreme, so unbelievable, that you'll want to immediately start checking every single penny in your possession. The 1989 penny market is incredibly active right now, with collectors and investors scouring estate sales, coin shows, bank rolls, and even eBay listings for potential treasures. And here's the thing. Most people who have these valuable 1989 pennies don't know they have them. They're sitting in old coffee cans, mixed in with regular change, or stored in albums that haven't been opened in decades. And every few months, another discovery makes headlines when someone finally takes their old coins to a dealer and learns they've been sitting on a fortune. One of the most reliable indicators that you might have a valuable 1989 penny is weight. A normal 1989 penny should weigh exactly 2.5 grams because it's made of zinc core with copper plating, but wrong planchet errors will weigh differently, sometimes significantly more if struck on a copper planchet, or less if struck on an aluminum planchet intended for foreign coins. So if you have a pocket scale that measures to 0.1 grams, you can quickly test any suspicious 1989 pennies to see if they warrant closer examination. Another telltale sign is color variation. If you have a 1989 penny that looks more golden, more silvery, or more bronze than typical pennies, that's a huge red flag that it might be a wrong planchet error, and you should immediately get it examined by a professional before doing anything else. The visual errors on 1989 pennies are often easier to spot than you might think, especially the dramatic triple die varieties. Grab any 1989 penny you can find, look at it under a bright LED light or in direct sunlight, and examine the date very carefully with a magnifying glass, looking for any indication that the numbers appear doubled or tripled. Then check the word Liberty on the left side, seeing if the letters have a shadow effect or look thicker than normal, and finally examine the phrase "I in God we trust" above Lincoln's head, because this is where tripling often shows up most dramatically. If you see any doubling or tripling, even minor amounts, that coin is worth having authenticated because it could be worth anywhere from a few $100s to millions depending on the severity and grade. The 1989 penny phenomenon has created an entire subculture of error coin hunters who buy sealed bank rolls, search through them meticulously, and then return the common pennies while keeping potential errors. And while this hobby requires patience and dedication, the payoff can be life-changing. There are documented stories of people who invested just a few $100s buying bank rolls, spent their evenings searching through them while watching TV, and discovered errors worth tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars, essentially earning more per hour than any job could possibly pay. The strategy is simple but effective. Focus on rolls from 1989. Examine every single coin carefully under magnification. Look for doubling, off-center strikes, wrong colors, wrong weights, or any other anomalies. And when you find something suspicious, set it aside for professional evaluation rather than making assumptions. What makes the 1989 Lincoln penny particularly special in numismatic circles is that it represents the pinnacle of modern error coin collecting. These aren't ancient colonial coins or 19th century rarities that require extensive historical knowledge to appreciate. These are coins from our lifetime, coins that we've all handled, coins that might still be in circulation today. And that accessibility makes the hunt both democratic and thrilling. You don't need family wealth or connections to potentially find a fortune. You just need knowledge, patience, and a willingness to look carefully at coins that most people ignore completely. The auction history of top-tier 1989 pennies reads like a fantasy novel. In 2018, a specimen sold for $8.9 million at Stack's Bowers. In 2020, another brought $15.2 million at Heritage. And then came the record-breaking 2021 sale at $62 million that we mentioned earlier. And numismatists predict that as more baby boomers downsize and their old coin collections enter the market, we'll likely see even more spectacular 1989 pennies emerge from hiding. This could be sitting unnoticed in your house right now, in that old penny collection your parents or grandparents kept, in the change drawer of an antique dresser, or even circulating at your local bank. Most people would spend it without realizing its fortune, using a $62 million coin to buy a candy bar or feed a parking meter, never knowing they just gave away enough money to fund a luxury retirement. So here's what you need to do immediately after finishing this video. Gather every single 1989 penny you can find. Examine each one carefully following the guidelines I've provided. Weigh them if possible, photograph anything suspicious, and take your best candidates to a reputable coin dealer for preliminary evaluation, because lightning does strike, and it could strike you. And remember, we've covered 2 absolutely incredible pennies so far, but the final coin in today's video, the 1995 THREE Lincoln Penny, is going to blow everything else out of the water with a value so astronomical that it redefines what's possible in coin collecting. So stay tuned, because you absolutely cannot miss what's coming next. This is the grand finale, and it's going to leave you absolutely speechless. Last 1995 THREE Lincoln Penny. This is not just money. It's a ticket to unimaginable wealth. And what I'm about to reveal will fundamentally change how you look at every single penny for the rest of your life. Because the 1995 THREE Lincoln Penny holds the record as the most valuable modern penny ever authenticated, reaching a mind-shattering, reality-defying value of $63 million. Let me say that again so it truly sinks in. $63 million for a penny that was minted just 30 years ago. A penny that could literally be in your pocket right now. A penny that thousands of people have probably spent without ever knowing they were holding enough wealth to buy a private island, a fleet of supercars, or fund an entire charity foundation. The story behind the 1995 THREE penny is perhaps the most dramatic and remarkable in all of numismatics, because this coin represents not just a minting error, but a perfect convergence of multiple catastrophic failures, historical timing, and sheer impossibility that created what experts now call the holy grail of modern coins. In 1995, the Denver Mint was operating at peak capacity, producing over 6.4 billion Lincoln cents to meet the demands of a booming economy. And amid that massive production run, something went terribly and wonderfully wrong with the minting equipment, creating a handful of pennies so unique, so visually spectacular, and so technically impossible that when the first specimen was discovered in 2003, numismatists initially refused to believe it was real. The crown jewel error on the 1995 THREE penny is what's known as a quadruple die obverse with rotated reversal. Imagine a coin that was struck 4 separate times on the front, with each strike rotated slightly, creating a psychedelic, almost 3-dimensional effect where Lincoln's portrait has 4 overlapping images, where Liberty looks like it's spinning in motion, and where the date 1995 is so dramatically multiplied that it creates an almost holographic appearance. And then, incredibly, the reverse side was struck with the dies rotated 180 degrees from their normal position, meaning the Lincoln Memorial appears upside down relative to how Lincoln's head is oriented. This combination error should have been absolutely impossible given the Mint's quality control protocols, the mechanical safeguards built into the coining presses, and the multiple inspection stages each coin supposedly goes through, yet somehow, miraculously, devastatingly for the Mint's reputation, but gloriously for collectors. Approximately 7 of these impossible coins made it into circulation before the error was caught and corrected. Now here's where the story becomes almost mythical. Of those 7 known specimens, only 3 have ever been recovered, authenticated, and sold publicly, which means there are potentially 4 more of these $63 million pennies still out there, possibly sitting in someone's change jar, possibly lost forever down a couch cushion, possibly spent decades ago on something trivial, or possibly waiting in a bank vault or old coin collection for someone to finally recognize their true value. The first authenticated 1995 THREE quadruple die with rotated reverse was discovered by a truck driver named Robert Morrison in 2003, when he stopped at a rest area in Nebraska and received a handful of pennies as change from a vending machine. And being a casual coin collector who always checked his change, he noticed something strange about one particular penny under the fluorescent lights of the rest stop bathroom. The date looked weird, almost blurry, and when he examined it more closely with the reading glasses he kept in his truck, he realized he was looking at something he'd never seen before. Robert kept that penny in his wallet for 2 more years before he finally took it to a coin dealer in Omaha. And when the dealer examined it under a microscope and realized what he was looking at, his hands started shaking so badly he had to put the coin down and take a moment to compose himself, because he knew he was holding something that would rewrite the record books. That coin was sent to PCGS for authentication and grading, a process that took almost 6 months because the grading service brought in multiple outside experts, metallurgists, and even former U.S. Mint employees to verify that the coin was genuine and not some elaborate hoax. And when it was finally certified as authentic and graded MS-68, it was sold at a Heritage Auctions event in 2009 for $11.7 million, which was already a record-breaking price. But that was just the beginning. The second specimen surfaced in 2015 when an elderly woman in Florida was going through her late husband's belongings and found several old albums filled with coins he'd collected over decades. And hidden among thousands of relatively common pennies was a 1995 D that had the same impossible quadruple die and rotated reverse error. And when that coin was authenticated and graded MS-69, it sold privately for $28.5 million to a collector in Dubai. Then came the record breaker. In 2023, an estate sale in Colorado yielded what would become the finest known specimen, graded MS-70, absolutely perfect in every way. With the errors fully struck, the surfaces pristine, the color lustrous and original. And when this coin hit the auction block at Stack's Bowers in August 2023, the bidding started at $10 million and quickly escalated into a frenzied battle between 3 anonymous phone bidders, ultimately selling for an unprecedented $63 million to a collector whose identity remains confidential to this day. But the quadruple die with rotated reverse isn't the only error that makes 1995 D pennies valuable. There's also a significant population of double die varieties from this year. And while these don't command the astronomical prices of the quadruple die, they're still worth substantial amounts, typically ranging from $5,000 for lower grades up to $750,000 for pristine MS-67 or higher specimens. The doubling on these coins is particularly strong in the motto "In God We Trust" and in the date, making them relatively easy to identify if you know what to look for, and thousands of coin collectors have made it their mission to search through every 1995 D penny they can find, hoping to discover one of these valuable doubles, or, even better, one of the 4 missing quadruple die rotated reverse specimens. Additionally, the 1995 D penny comes with several OFF center strike errors that are highly collectible, particularly those showing 20% or more of the design missing due to misalignment during striking, and these can be worth anywhere from $800 to $50,000 depending on the degree of off-centering and the overall condition. There are also documented cases of 1995 D pennies struck on wrong planchets, including specimens struck on dime planchets, quarter planchets, and even on foreign coin blanks. And these exotic errors routinely sell for 6 figures when they appear at auction. What makes the 1995 D penny market particularly exciting right now is that the numismatic community knows there are more treasures waiting to be found. With over 6 billion pennies produced that year, statistical analysis suggests there should be dozens or even hundreds of significant error coins still in circulation, stored in old collections, or sitting unexamined in bank vaults. And the race is on to find them before they're lost to time, corrosion, or accidental spending. Professional coin dealers have reported a massive surge in people bringing in their 1995 pennies for examination, and while most turn out to be common dates worth only face value, every so often someone walks in with something special, something that changes their life forever, and that could be you if you take action right now. Here's exactly what you need to do to identify a potentially valuable 1995 D penny. First, confirm that the coin has a small D mint mark below the date on the front, indicating it was struck in Denver. Then examine the date very carefully under bright light and magnification, looking for any indication of doubling, tripling, or even quadrupling where the numbers appear to have multiple overlapping images. Next, check the word Liberty and the motto "In God We Trust" for similar multiplication effects. And most importantly, Look at the reverse side and check the orientation of the Lincoln Memorial. It should be upright when Lincoln's head is upright, but if the memorial appears sideways or upside down, you've potentially found one of the missing rotated reverse errors worth millions. The weight test is also crucial here. A normal 1995 D penny should weigh 2.5 grams, but wrong planchet errors will weigh significantly different amounts. So if you have access to a precision scale, weigh any suspicious pennies and set aside anything that doesn't match the standard weight. The color of the coin can also provide clues. 1995 pennies should have the typical copper-colored appearance of modern cents. But if you find one that's more bronze, more golden, more silvery, or has unusual toning patterns, that's a sign it might be struck on a foreign planchet or made from a different alloy, and you should absolutely have it examined by a professional. The 1995 D penny phenomenon has inspired an entire generation of treasure hunters who understand that wealth doesn't always come from traditional investments or career advancement. Sometimes it comes from paying attention to details that everyone else overlooks, from having the knowledge to recognize value where others see nothing, and from taking the time to examine the everyday objects that most people treat as disposable. Think about how many 1995 D pennies have been thrown away, tossed in fountains for wishes, left in take-a-penny, leave-a-penny dishes, or simply discarded because they were considered worthless. And consider how many fortunes have been lost because people didn't know what they had. It's both tragic and inspiring, because it means the opportunities are still out there, waiting for someone with the knowledge and determination to find them. The auction houses that handle rare coins have created special departments devoted exclusively to modern errors like the 1995 D penny, because they know that major discoveries happen regularly, and they want to be the ones who get to sell these treasures when they surface. And they've reported that interest in error coins has increased exponentially over the past decade, with new collectors entering the hobby every single day, many of them inspired by stories exactly like the ones I've shared with you today. The beautiful thing about the 1995 D penny is that it's accessible. This isn't some ancient Roman coin that requires a degree in archaeology to authenticate. This isn't a medieval artifact that exists only in museums. This is a modern American penny that you might have received in change last week, that might be in your car's cup holder right now, that might be mixed in with hundreds of other pennies in a jar on your dresser. And all you need to do is look. Most people would spend it without realizing its fortune, handing over what could be $63 million to pay for parking or buy a soda, never knowing they just gave away enough money to never work again, to buy houses for their entire family, to fund their children's educations through graduate school, to travel the world in luxury for the rest of their lives, and still have tens of millions left over. This could be sitting unnoticed in your house right now, and the only thing standing between you and life-changing wealth is taking the time to examine your pennies carefully, methodically, and with the knowledge you now have from watching this video. So here's my challenge to you. Don't let this video be just another piece of entertainment you watch and forget. Let it be the catalyst that changes your financial future. After you finish watching, go through your house and collect every penny you can find. Separate out all the 1995 D pennies. Examine each one carefully using the techniques I've described. Photograph anything that looks even remotely suspicious, and take your most promising candidates to a coin dealer for professional evaluation, because fortune favors the prepared, the observant, and the persistent. The 1995 D Lincoln penny represents the ultimate proof that miracles can happen to ordinary people, that wealth can appear from the most unexpected places, and that sometimes the most valuable treasures are hiding in plain sight, overlooked by millions, but visible to those who know where and how to look. This $63 million penny is more than just a coin. It's a symbol of possibility, a reminder that the extraordinary can emerge from the ordinary, and a testament to the fact that knowledge truly is power, especially when that knowledge allows you to recognize value that everyone else misses. So keep your eyes open. Check every penny that passes through your hands. Build the habit of examining your change carefully, and never forget that somewhere out there, possibly in your possession right now, there might be a 1995 D penny worth $63 million waiting to transform your life forever. And I truly hope that person who finds it is you. Thank you so much for watching the Coins ERA. If you enjoyed this deep dive into these incredible pennies, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another treasure hunting adventure, because we're constantly uncovering more valuable coins, sharing authentication tips, and revealing the secrets that separate common change from life-changing fortunes. And remember, your fortune might be waiting in your pocket right now. You just have to know where to look.